when food prices are already about 25% higher than before the pandemic, the biggest problem is no longer just the price. The problem is what will happen if millions of people rush to buy the same items in the same week. A Walmart manager said that if the stockpiling trend continues to rise, some familiar foods could be among the first items to get purchase limit labels starting in June. And when that label appears, the data behind it has usually already changed weeks earlier. What is worth noting is that these are not luxury items. They are normal foods that millions of families use every day. In today's video, we will look at 7 foods with the highest risk of being purchase limited, what is happening behind the shelves, and why the number 1 item may surprise you. 7. Canned meat. Mark is not a prepper. He does not have a basement full of plastic bins, no large generator behind the house, no 90-day survival plan. He is just an ordinary father in the suburbs, working full-time, raising 2 children, and like so many other American families, he thought that if something happened, he could just run to Walmart and be done with it. Until last winter, an ice storm swept through the area where he lived. The power went out. The roads froze. Stores opened irregularly. The refrigerator lasted less than 2 days. Then everything started to smell different. Raw chicken was no longer usable. Yogurt, frozen food thawed. By the evening of the 3rd day, Mark opened the refrigerator, stood still for a few seconds, then turned back to look at his 2 children sitting at the kitchen table. The younger child asked a very simple question. "What are we eating tonight?" That is the question that makes many fathers go silent. Not because the house had no food. There were still a few boxes of cereal in the cabinet, some noodles, and a small bag of rice. But Mark realized that what he was missing was not something to chew. He was missing real protein. Something that makes a meal feel like a meal, not just a way to fight hunger. A few days later, when everything was stable again, he told that story to a Walmart manager he knew. The manager said one thing to him directly: "You are not the only one." After every power outage or major storm, canned meat is one of the items people grab the fastest. And according to that manager, what stood out was not a few customers buying a few extra cans of tuna. What stood out was the way they bought. Before, many people only picked up 1 or 2 cans. But recently, many customers have started buying by the pack, by the case, even buying multiple kinds at once. Tuna, canned chicken, Spam, corned beef, canned beef. When a protein item starts shifting from individual buying to stockpiling, the retail system sees it very quickly. That is when the purchase limit label can appear. Not because Walmart wants to scare shoppers, but because if the data shows products leaving the shelf faster than the distribution center can replenish them, they are forced to slow the buying flow down. A small label that says Limit 2 or Limit 3 per customer does not appear based on emotion. It usually appears after the data has already started flashing red. And with canned meat, the reason is very easy to understand. Protein is always one of the first food groups people hunt for when they lose confidence in fresh food. Fresh meat needs a refrigerated counter. Frozen meat needs electricity. Eggs can jump in price after just a few supply shocks. But canned meat is different. It sits quietly on the shelf. It does not need a freezer. It does not need to be cooked right away. It does not need a delivery truck to arrive on the exact day. It does not require you to squeeze through a crowd at the last minute. A can of tuna or canned chicken can usually provide about 20 to 40 grams of protein, depending on the type. Some kinds also contain iron, zinc, B vitamins, and fat. For people over 50, protein is not just about eating until full. It is connected to muscle, strength, recovery, and a sense of stability during stressful days. For children, it helps a meal become more than just empty starch. For a family dealing with a power outage, lost income, or being stuck at home because of bad weather, it is what turns rice, noodles, beans, or crackers into a real meal. The way to use it is also very simple. Tuna can be mixed with rice, bread, or crackers. Canned chicken can go into soup, noodles, porridge, fried rice, or salad. Spam can be fried if there is still a stove, or eaten with rice and beans if quick energy is needed. Corned beef can be mixed with potatoes, beans, bread, or whatever base food is still in the pantry. One small can does not solve the whole crisis, but it can save one dinner. And sometimes, in a stressed family, saving one dinner is already a lot. The shelf life of most canned meat usually falls somewhere between 2 and 5 years. The important thing is proper storage. A dry, cool place, away from direct sunlight, away from high heat, and do not keep cans that are rusty, swollen, leaking, or heavily dented around the seams. The smartest way is to buy different kinds. Write down the purchase date and use the old cans first, the new cans later. Do not turn your pantry into a canned food museum. Turn it into a rotation system. And this is what Mark said after that power outage. "I do not need a survival warehouse. I just wish I had one small shelf enough so I would not have to panic." That sentence is the real nature of canned meat. It is not only for extreme people. It is for the ordinary father who does not want to stand helplessly in front of a broken refrigerator. It is for the ordinary mother who wants to have a few reliable meals in the house. It is for the older adult who does not want to drive to the store in bad weather just to find a source of protein. When life is normal, a can of meat looks very ordinary. But when the power goes out, fresh meat spoils, refrigerated counters are empty, and purchase limit labels start appearing on Walmart shelves. That can of meat is no longer a cheap item. It is dinner. It is strength. It is the calm of the whole family in a week when everything outside starts to fall into chaos. 6. Cooking oil. When was the last time you truly thought about cooking oil? Not when you bought it. Not when you saw it on a Walmart shelf. But when you asked yourself what would happen if one day it was no longer there. Most people never think about that. Linda was the same. She just stopped by Walmart after work to buy a few familiar items for the new week. Some frozen vegetables, a carton of eggs, potatoes, and a bottle of vegetable oil. Nothing special. No stockpiling plan. No emergency list. Just a normal shopping trip like millions of Americans still make every week. But when she turned into the cooking oil aisle, she stopped. Not because the shelves were completely empty, but because the large bottles had almost disappeared. The price tags were still there. The empty spaces were still there. But the product was not. A Walmart employee walked by and said something very thought-provoking. People do not buy a lot of cooking oil until they feel that something is wrong. And when they start buying, they do not buy one bottle. They buy 3 or 4 bottles. That is when you realize something interesting. People do not stockpile cooking oil because they love cooking oil. People stockpile cooking oil because they understand that when cooking oil disappears, many other foods in the house suddenly become less valuable. Think about that. You may still have frozen vegetables. You may still have eggs. You may still have potatoes. You may still have ground meat in the freezer. You may still have pancake mix, frozen fish, or other vegetables. But when the source of fat in the kitchen disappears, many familiar foods start becoming harder to cook, harder to make taste good, and lower in energy. That is what makes cooking oil different from many other foods. It is not the star of the meal, but it helps many meals work. What is interesting is that the story of cooking oil does not really begin at Walmart. It begins in soybean, canola, sunflower, and coconut fields. Then it moves through processing plants, transportation systems, distribution centers, and only then arrives on supermarket shelves. A bottle of cooking oil looks very simple, but behind it is an entire supply chain stretching thousands of miles. When fuel prices rise, transportation costs rise. When fertilizer prices rise, production costs rise. When extreme weather reduces crop yields, supply begins to tighten. And when consumers see prices creeping up month after month, they begin doing something that retailers always watch very closely. They buy ahead. That is what Walmart sees earlier than most consumers. Shoppers only see a shelf. Walmart sees the sales rate. Shoppers only see a bottle of oil. Walmart sees pallets leaving the distribution center. Shoppers only know that the product is available today, but the retail system knows whether there will be enough inventory over the next few weeks to fill that empty space. And when the buying rate exceeds the restocking rate, purchase limit labels begin to have a reason to appear. That is why cooking oil often becomes one of the first items to attract attention when the market starts showing signs of stress. Not because it is rare, but because too many people need it at the same time. But the story of cooking oil is not only about the supply chain. It is also about the nutritional value that many people underestimate. 1 tablespoon of cooking oil contains about 120 calories. That may not sound like much, but look at it another way. 1 standard gallon of vegetable oil can contain more than 30,000 calories. That is an amount of energy an adult can use over many weeks. Very few products in a supermarket can store that much energy in such a small amount of space. That is why cooking oil has long been considered one of the most effective storage foods in terms of the amount of energy received compared to the cost. But calories are only part of the story. Fat also helps the body absorb fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamins A, D, E, and K. If the diet starts depending heavily on dry foods, canned foods, or starches, a lack of fat can make it harder for the body to absorb enough nutrition. For people over 50, this becomes even more important. A meal does not just need to make you full. It needs to help you maintain energy, strength, and a sense of wellness during difficult periods. 1 small spoonful of oil does not make a big difference on a normal day, but in a difficult week, it can make a noticeable difference. When it comes to storage, cooking oil has one major advantage. It does not need electricity. It does not need a refrigerator. It does not need a freezer. It only needs to be stored in a cool, dry place, away from direct sunlight, and sealed tightly after use. Vegetable oil and canola oil can usually be stored for 1 to 2 years unopened, depending on the product. Olive oil is usually at its best within about 12 to 24 months. Coconut oil can last longer if stored properly. The important thing is to rotate it instead of forgetting it in storage for years. No one panics over a lack of cooking oil on the first day, but by the 3rd day, when familiar foods start becoming drier, blander, and harder to cook, people begin to realize how many meals in the house have quietly depended on it. It is the lubricant of the entire food system. And when that lubricant starts becoming scarce, the whole machine begins to feel it. If in the coming weeks you walk into Walmart and see a small label that says Limit 2 under the large bottles of oil, do not think it is just a random decision. It may be a sign that the system has already seen what most consumers will only realize weeks later. 5. Honey in 1922. When archaeologists opened one of the ancient tombs of Egypt, they found jars that had been sealed for thousands of years. Inside was not gold, not gemstones, not the treasures people usually think of when talking about the pharaohs. It was honey. What shocked the whole world was not that the ancient Egyptians stored honey. It was that the honey had still not spoiled. After thousands of years. Think about that for a moment. Most foods in our kitchens only last a few days. Some canned foods can last a few years. But honey can last longer than many countries, many empires, and many civilizations. That is not advertising. That is history. And that is why honey sits at number 5 on this list. If you asked 100 Walmart shoppers which item could get a purchase limit label in the near future, most would say canned meat, rice, or cooking oil. Very few people would think of honey, but that is exactly what makes it worth noticing. In a conversation with a Walmart manager, he said something quite interesting. The items that catch my attention are not always the best-selling items. Sometimes they are the items customers start buying differently. Honey is one example of that. People are no longer just picking up one small bottle for tea. They are starting to look for larger jars. They look for raw honey. They look for glass jars instead of small plastic bottles. That is the kind of change the retail system notices very early. Because when consumers start seeing a product as a long-term asset instead of a weekly consumer item, shopping behavior changes. What is interesting is that the story of honey does not begin at Walmart. It begins with bees. In recent years, researchers have repeatedly warned about the decline in bee colonies in many parts of the world. Climate change, pesticides, parasites, loss of habitat. These factors are putting increasing pressure on honeybee populations. Meanwhile, demand is moving in the opposite direction. More people want to use natural sweeteners. The food industry uses more honey. Health and supplement products also consume more honey. Supply falls. Demand rises. Prices begin to rise. That is a formula every market understands very well. And Walmart understands it too. Consumers see a jar of honey. Walmart sees the speed at which products leave the warehouse. Consumers see the price rise by a few dollars. Walmart sees a trend lasting for months. That is why Limit 2 labels often appear before most customers realize what is happening. But what makes honey special is not only supply, it is its real value. 1 tablespoon of honey contains about 60 calories of easily absorbed energy. That may not sound like much, but 1 large 5-pound jar of honey can contain more than 6,000 calories. A few jars stored in the pantry can hold a significant amount of energy in a very small space. That is why honey has been with humanity for thousands of years. It is energy that can be stored almost indefinitely. It does not need electricity. It does not need a refrigerator. It does not need a freezer. It does not need any supporting system. A jar of honey that is sealed and stored properly can sit on a shelf for many years with almost no change. If it crystallizes, that does not mean it has gone bad. In fact, that is often a sign of real honey. Simply place the jar in warm water and the crystals will gradually dissolve. That is one of the strangest things about honey. It gets old, but it almost never dies. When it comes to use, honey is far more versatile than many people realize. Add it to tea. Eat it with bread. Mix it with oatmeal. Use it in baking. Combine it with peanut butter. Or simply take a small spoonful when the body needs quick, extra energy. A jar of honey does not take up much space, but its value goes far beyond that size. And here is the most interesting thing. For most of human history, honey was never just food. It was once a trading good, once a valuable item, once stored as a form of wealth. Not because ancient people were naive, but because they understood something that modern society often forgets. Anything that can last for years, decades, even longer, always has value. That is why honey has survived wars. survived crises, survived economic downturns, survived changes that countless other products could not survive. If in the next few weeks you walk into Walmart and see honey starting to carry purchase limit labels, do not think it is just a story about something sweet. Because honey has never been just food. Throughout thousands of years of history, it has always been three things at once: currency, energy, and one of the most durable foods humanity has ever known. 4. Rice. You think you are buying a bag of rice at Walmart? But in reality, the price of that bag of rice may have already been decided in a government office in India, a flooded field in Vietnam, or a congested seaport in Asia. That is what makes rice one of the most special foods in the entire supermarket. Most people see a dinner. Governments see food security. Retailers see a global supply chain. And that is why rice sits at number 4 on this list. If you ask a Walmart shopper what determines the price of a bag of rice, most will think of inflation or transportation costs. But the real story is much bigger. It begins in countries like India, Vietnam, and Thailand. These are places that supply much of the world's exported rice. When the harvest is favorable, the system operates relatively steadily. But when one link has a problem, the entire market can react very quickly. A drought, a major flood, a storm, an export restriction decision, or a congested seaport. That is all it takes to create a domino effect. That happened when India restricted exports of certain types of rice to protect domestic supplies. Importers around the world immediately began looking for alternative sources from Vietnam and Thailand. Demand increased. Prices increased. Transportation costs increased. And eventually, that effect appeared on Walmart shelves thousands of miles away. A family in Texas, a retiree in Florida, a shopper in Ohio. They may not follow international agricultural news, but they may still end up paying more for the same bag of rice. That is what makes this product unique. You eat it for dinner. But its price is determined by events taking place on the other side of the world. That is also why Walmart watches this product very closely. Consumers see a bag of rice. Walmart sees thousands of containers. Consumers see a price. Walmart sees the speed at which products leave distribution centers. When the data starts showing that supply could tighten in the future, shopping behavior changes very quickly. People choose larger bags. Buy 2 bags instead of 1. Buy for several months instead of 1 week. That is exactly the kind of behavior that can lead to purchase limit labels. But what keeps rice so high on this list is not only the risk to supply, it is its practical value. A 20-pound bag of white rice can contain more than 30,000 calories. That is enough energy to sustain an adult for many weeks. Very few foods in the supermarket can provide that much energy at a relatively low cost. That is why billions of people around the world still depend on rice after thousands of years. However, there is one practical thing to remember. Rice does not need a refrigerator. It does not need a freezer. It does not depend on electricity for storage. But to use it, you still need clean water and a source of heat. This is the detail many people overlook when stockpiling. If the goal is long-term storage, white rice is usually more suitable than brown rice. Brown rice keeps the bran layer that contains natural oils, so it can go rancid more easily over time. White rice is slightly less nutritious, but it can keep its quality significantly longer when stored dry and sealed. When it comes to use, very few foods are more flexible than rice. Eat it with canned meat. Eat it with beans. Eat it with vegetables. Eat it with eggs. Eat it with almost any protein source left in the house. It is not the star of the meal, but it helps many meals survive. In normal times, people see rice as food. In unstable times, people see rice as stability. If in the coming months you walk into Walmart and see large bags of rice starting to carry Limit 2 labels, do not think it is just a story about a food product, because rice has never been just food. It is one of the most important foundations of global food security. 3. Dry beans. There is a fact that many Americans rarely think about. A bowl of rice next to a bowl of beans is not just two inexpensive foods. It is one of the most successful survival formulas in history. Billions of people have lived on it for centuries. That is why dry beans hold the number 3 position. When family budgets get tighter, people do not stop needing protein. They simply start looking for smarter sources of protein. And that is when beans enter the picture. A Walmart manager said that what stands out is not only that beans are selling faster, but the size people are buying. In the past, customers picked up 1 or 2 small bags. But when food prices rise, 10-pound and 20-pound bags start leaving the shelves faster. In some areas, purchases of large bags can increase by more than 30% in just a few weeks. The real value of beans lies in science. The body needs protein to maintain muscle, strength, the immune system, and recovery. Protein is made up of amino acids. Many types of beans contain significant amounts of protein, but they lack some essential amino acids. Rice provides what is missing. Together, beans and rice create a much more complete protein source than either one eaten on its own. That is why so many cultures around the world have their own version of rice and beans. But beans are also under supply pressure. Drought, fertilizer costs, transportation, and weak harvests can all push prices higher. Farms cannot produce more in just a few weeks. If the harvest is already weak, the market has to wait for the next one. Nutritionally, beans provide protein, complex carbohydrates, fiber, iron, folate, and many important minerals. For people over 50, this is a food source that helps them stay full longer and keeps energy more stable than many processed foods. Dry beans are also easy to store. As long as they are kept dry, sealed, and away from moisture, many types of dry beans can keep their quality for years. Black beans, pinto beans, red beans, chickpeas, and lentils can be used in soups, stews, rice dishes, salads, or combined with almost any food left in the house. 1 pound of meat can disappear after one meal, but 1 pound of dry beans, after being cooked, can create far more servings. That is why during periods when budgets are tight, beans do not compete with meat through luxury. They beat meat through efficiency. If in the coming months you see dry beans at Walmart carrying Limit 2 labels, do not think of them as just cheap food. Beans have never been poor food. They are one of the smartest protein sources humanity has ever discovered. 2. Powdered milk. A grandmother stands in Walmart and looks at the milk shelf. Not because she loves milk, but because her grandchild is coming to visit this weekend. But what worries her is not the price, but the empty space on the shelf. On normal days, that is not a big problem. Just come back tomorrow. But what happens when tomorrow is also gone? That is when many families realize they depend on milk more than they thought. Milk is not just a drink. For children, it is calcium for growing bones. For older adults, it is protein, vitamin D, and nutrients that help maintain muscle health. That is why powdered milk stands at number 2 on this list. A Walmart manager once said that items related to young children and older adults often change very quickly when consumers start feeling uneasy. No one wants to wait until they run out before buying, especially when there are grandchildren or aging parents in the house. That is why shelf-stable products like powdered milk often start leaving the shelves faster before most shoppers realize what is happening. What makes powdered milk special is that it solves a very big problem. Fresh milk depends on the system. Factories, refrigerated trucks, cold storage, supermarkets, electricity. But powdered milk turns a perishable product into one that can be stored long-term. That is a huge difference, and the consequences of lacking milk usually do not appear immediately on the first day. They appear after many weeks. A lack of calcium, a lack of protein, a lack of vitamins. Especially for growing children and older adults who need to maintain bone health. Nutritionally, powdered milk still provides many of the same important nutrients as regular milk when prepared properly. That is why many families see it as a backup option rather than a replacement product. If stored dry and sealed, many types of powdered milk can maintain their quality much longer than fresh milk. That is why it appears in so many family pantries. And here is the most important thing. When you look at a box of powdered milk, you are not just looking at food. You are looking at peace of mind. The peace of mind that a grandchild will still have milk to drink. The peace of mind that aging parents will still receive the nutrients they need. The peace of mind that the family still has a backup plan when things do not go according to plan. Powdered milk is not just food, it is peace of mind. 1. Peanut butter, really? After all the items on this list, the number 1 spot goes to peanut butter? That is exactly the reaction many people have. And that is also why it deserves to be at the top. Because it may be the most underestimated food in the entire supermarket. A jar of peanut butter does not look like anything special. It does not need refrigeration before opening. It is not a premium food. It is not the kind of food people show off on social media. But inside that jar is a very rare combination. Protein, fat, calories, all at the same time. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter can provide nearly 200 calories, along with a significant amount of protein and fat. 1 standard jar can contain more than 2,500 calories. That is an amount of energy many people never think about when looking at a food that often appears in a child's lunchbox. And this is where things become interesting. Compared to meat, it is easier to store. Compared to eggs, it is more stable. Compared to many convenience foods, it provides higher nutritional value per dollar spent. It does not need to be cooked. It does not need electricity. It does not need preparation. Open the lid and it is ready to use. That is a huge advantage when time, resources, or systems start running into problems. A Walmart manager once noted that products that are easy to store, calorie-dense, and ready to use are often among the first items where shopping behavior changes. And peanut butter is the perfect example. People are no longer buying 1 jar. They are buying 2 or 3 jars. Not because of panic, but because they understand its real value. The most interesting thing is that this has always been seen as a children's food. But when viewed through the lens of survival and long-term preparation, it becomes one of the most valuable foods in the entire store. That is the reversal many people do not expect. A childhood food, beating many more expensive foods through efficiency. If in the coming months you see peanut butter carrying Limit 2 labels, do not be too surprised. Because consumers are not seeing a children's food. They are seeing an energy warehouse packed into a single jar. We have just gone through 7 foods that could end up carrying purchase limit labels if supply conditions and shopping behavior continue to change. What is worth noting is that they are all very ordinary. Canned meat, cooking oil, honey, rice, beans, powdered milk, and peanut butter. Each one serves its own purpose. Protein, energy, nutrition, shelf life, and peace of mind for the family. Preparation is not panic. Preparation is understanding the value of essential items before the shelves start to empty. If you could choose only one item to buy first, which one would you choose? Share your answer in the comments below.